Tracy, Dexter, thank you so much for your time this morning and for your willingness to participate in our Project Inclusion Values and Lifestyles report and this interview, which is part of the EPA. So I thought maybe we could start by asking some background information about Kalgera and what led you to establishing it.
Kalgera started off really in a non-financial service world. My background is in medicine. I'm a medical doctor and I work with people living with dementia. And I saw the experiences of these families that were really struggling with financial exploitation of their relatives. And, talking about people losing up to £100,000 from fraud. And I couldn't find a solution that could better support and give some advance warning to these individuals that conditions were deteriorating. And at the time, I was not only working full-time as a doctor, but I was doing a part-time research methods master's at UCL. And I engaged with the ecosystem at UCL innovation and got going with the idea. And before I knew it, the concept of flagging unusual transactions to family members won £13,000 in prize money. That got the first prototype out and got some first bit of investment to start developing that product. And I think the idea of including people who have got a problem that is related to mental health or to health problems like dementia is something that had been really underlooked, just like 5 years ago. And being on that journey, it's been something that's allowed me to translate my skills as a researcher and someone that's actually really deeply understands the challenges faced by vulnerable customers. So that's how it started.
And I guess we now know why you created Kalgera, and I'd love to get a sense of what is it about the need here. So individuals with disabilities, like you say, Dexter, with mental health needs, why do they require different financial products and services?
So when we make financial decisions, we are using a complex combination of skills, and you're using different types of knowledge, and then you're making a judgment based on that. Because of external factors or factors that are internal to you, so how experienced you were with managing money, did you have any exposure, did your parents teach you about this, did you have any exposure at all whatsoever, do you have any underlying learning difficulty or something. Those are factors, plus health conditions. But then external factors like where you live, what the area is like, and the makeup of your household, those can positively or negatively impact the way that you manage your finances and how you make financial decisions. So if you've got any of these types of challenges, it can make you less able to confidently, consistently, and in your own best interest, manage your finances. So I think accounting for these in the way that different products are designed and different services are rendered to these individuals, by taking that into consideration, is something that's incredibly important, so that they are empowered to be part of that process and not just get all of the bad outcomes that we know. And the pandemic has really shown. The numbers are just out from the FCA Financial Lives survey show that when they compared October 2020 with February 2020, there were additional 3 million people that had characteristics of financial vulnerability. And so that's now it's more than half of the adult population. And so it's not just a niche problem, it's something that can affect any one of us at any time.
Thank you. And what would be really great now is to get a sense of how you are, or how you have, and how you continue to be developing and curating your products and services to suit the characteristics of the end user that you have articulated.
When Chrissy joined at the end of 2019, we were focusing on a B2B2C product that sent alerts to family members about suspicious activity on the account of someone that they cared for. And we were part of the Nesta Open Up 2020 challenge, and this came with £100,000 grants, a prize, and we used that to further develop that product and to roll that out. But we realized that actually we needed to go much further, and the product evolved into something that actually is enabling a financial institution to identify those moments of vulnerability in their customer base so that they can actually take the necessary action on their infrastructure to be able to better protect those vulnerable customers. So I'll give you an example. So one of the case studies that we found when developing the consumer side product, so a gentleman that did not have dementia, but needed to take some medication for another condition that made him impulsive, and so he had developed problems with debts and gambling, and lost the family home from that situation. And at a individual scale, yes, you can probably let the family members know that something looks unusual, but we realized that to make the biggest impact, we actually need to give the people that are responsible for protecting vulnerable customers within the institutions better ways of being able to do what the FCA guidance has stipulated, that you've got to identify what, do you know how many vulnerable customers you've got, and what are their needs so that you can better serve them. And so Chrissy can tell you a little bit more about what we've been able to do working with the FCA on that.
Yeah, I can take a step back. So when I joined in 2019 November, as part of the B2B2C proposition that Dexter mentioned, that Kalgera was developing under the Nesta challenge, we took, we engaged with different parties. So we engaged with the end users at that time, which were individuals. We engaged with charities like Age UK, amongst others. We engaged with different types of people that may have experience in protecting and advocating and supporting vulnerable individuals and vulnerable families. We came across, for example, other institutions, how they deal with different unusual cases, such as police. So we came up from a wide view, examining the cases, and it all started by doing some customer development with financial institutions, whereby we understood that they have some information through a one-to-one interaction, perhaps at a branch with an individual who may be vulnerable, or over the phone, but they don't have the full spectrum and understanding of that individual, and they always have to have in their mind cases of fraud, of financial abuse, cases of it's a big wide list of cases whereby the individual could be sick, the individual could have a disability, the individual could have Parkinson, or so wide range, or it had depression. So taking all these ranges that an individual may go through, and then having the individual in the financial institution trying to assess the case of that individual, and they express their concerns, and they express their anxieties, or they express like benefits but also risk factors of we took a step back and we are like, okay, actually, before providing a tool to the end user, like a PFM, and understanding that different safeguards have to be placed so that the PFM is used appropriately by that end user who may be vulnerable because they may have mental health, or because they're disabled, because they are in a difficult financial situation, and they or have anxiety attacks, or they may be financial abused, or they may be a lonely mother, different scenarios. They have to have, the individual in the financial institution has to have appropriate information or relevant information at their hand to make an assessment, what tools, what products and services they are able to offer to that end user, so that in fact that service and product actually benefits the end user and not puts them in a more vulnerable situation. And that's how we shifted our understanding, and we went through another big journey also with the FCA that was looking to deal with this type of situations.
And if I could maybe ask a question slightly separate, just to get a sense of the journey of Kalgera in terms of the proposition from, you know, direct to customer to direct to business. How did you evolve that journey for yourselves as a company?
So we started off, when I joined the company, we started off with looking at the values of the company. What matters to the team and what matters to us. I have to admit, we have revised this several times, because in the beginning you start with something broad, we care about this, but then as you go through, you detect these nuances of what really is what we are after. And as a team, we put at our heart, and we're aligned that we care about just delivering a better and more safe and more caring financial services to the end user. So when we think, how could that end user or the individual who is receiving banking services or financial services by a financial institution is able to be cared for, or feel more secure in their appropriate safeguards, first we have to understand them, or have to identify them, and then and give this in collaboration with financial institutions, so that they can take appropriate care of them. We can't do everything, and we have to have a starting point, but at the back of our mind is always what's most ethical in our point of view, at the point of view we're standing at that time, and how we can best deliver that.
And just to add on to that, you know, being grounded in that whole idea of wanting to positively disrupt financial services, it's something that we went into this thinking, okay, well, we're translating something that's coming from a medical cognitive neuroscience point of view. We're using artificial intelligence as the tool to be able to actually go through data in an ethical way in order to provide the interpretation of the behaviors that are being captured there, to be able to actually at a larger scale be able to support you know, several times more people that need to have that support. And really, it's just been a lot of talking with different organizations in different verticals in financial services, and listening and learning from what we've actually seen, and really thinking about it in a way. Okay, so we've got some ability to do this. And we went into the National Cybersecurity Center Cyber Accelerator at the end of last year. And that really helped us to completely refine everything, all of those insights that we got, and repackage things. So it's been a bit of a focusing on not just scale, but doubling down on the underlying values to make sure that it's consistent with what we want to achieve as we grow.
It's interesting, Chris, hearing from you and Dexter about the ability to articulate, and again, this question that I'm about to frame is, what role do you see Kalgera and the product and services that you have impacting financial inclusion as a whole? What's the big financial inclusion goal here, right?
Yeah, so it became apparent with the pandemic that this is a problem. So according to a couple of engagements we had, where one financial institution mentioned that last year, half of their customers became financially vulnerable. So it shows how delicate our society is, and well, it's apparent also with the pandemic. If most of the society is vulnerable, just like in their health, if they're vulnerable, it will just have an immediate impact to the rest of the society who may not be vulnerable, and to the system overall. So in order to protect how society works, how the markets work, take it from whatever angle you want, you have to make sure that you also ensure that the other part of the society who are more vulnerable are in a situation that can help themselves, that they can continue their lives, that they are financially stable and not tip over the whole boat. So it's important, whether you think about it of just economic and financial stability purposes, or whether you think about it from about the society that needs to be included in an appropriate way, that you have to take a more holistic approach. And that means taking more factors and putting it into the blend, like considering people who are disabled and need various services, or people who are undergoing financial stress, or people who are now working in the gig economy and how they manage their finances, and people from different maybe ethnic minorities and they're struggling in different communities. Think about the migrants who are living part of the UK. So, and their needs, and each one has their nuances, but that's how perhaps going through the data, building up first the scenarios and understanding these different personas, and then creating more tailored products would be a way to support each of these groups differently and more relevantly, because not one fits all.
What more can we do to get to a situation where we are more proactively doing maybe information, advice, guidance early on, before we even get to the stage where we have to prevent, before we have to prevent a situation from occurring? How can we, and it's something I think about a lot, which is when I think about the context of financial inclusion and members of society who become excluded, often we engage with them at the point of them just being excluded. And I just think, is there more that we can do further upstream, much earlier on, to even prevent ourselves from getting to a situation where they are almost vulnerable? Is that something that applies in this context? And the answer could be a really quick no, and we can move on. But it's something I think about a lot around the work that we do as Algebra and the communities that we are here to serve. And quite often, those communities are disproportionately in areas of deprivation. And therefore, when we talk about vulnerability in their context, they are vulnerable by virtue of their circumstance. And I just think to myself, as financial institutions, as well as providing services, is there more we can do further upstream, much earlier on, to preempt situations from occurring?
I would say that this is an emerging policy area, and the COVID-19 economic impact, it's only just beginning. And this particular point is going to be of extreme importance. And it's not just going to be something that is something that would be of interest to journalists, but it actually is going to affect people's day-to-day lives, and it will become a big political issue. And just reflecting on some of the things that we've looked at on our journey, I think my immediate answer actually is no. There's anything right now that we'd be able to necessarily do to further upstream at this point in time, because we don't actually fully understand all of the factors, actually. And being able to better understand and quantify this in the context of this big change that we've had, it's going to take some time. So yeah, that's what I think it's.
No, it's great. And Christy, did you want to add anything? Did you want to offer you the?
Yeah, I wanted to say, support us what Dexter said. Yes, currently no, but it's interesting to see some shifts taking place. So, for example, the FCA did a sprint about financial individuals, financially vulnerable individuals, financially vulnerable SMEs, and fraud detection in the summer. Then with the first digital sandbox during Q4. And then they had a tech sprint just before Easter about financially vulnerable women and solutions to help women, which I took part of as well as SME. And then you can see, for example, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation having interest in this. There's emerging organizations looking into the data and looking into these scenarios of financial vulnerability. So I think it's something that will grow, and I hope that people do recognize that this is a matter that has to be addressed, and hopefully these trends will just move towards that direction. And on top of that, another say important factor that one has to consider is further education on the subject.
I'd love to get a sense from you as to how you listen to your audience and to your customers. And I know there's a range of ways, but I'd love to get a sense from you both as to how you do that on a regular basis, and then how that helps you understand the challenges that they face with the current financial system.
It required a lot of type of discussions with from Dexter's point of view with his patients, from my point of view with financial institutions, and with the specialists that deal with customer service and vulnerable customers. And it became apparent that okay, not all financial institutions have the same flow or processes, but there is a need, and they do want to support this area increasingly. And then the pandemic came, so the need increased. Of course, it put a lot of stress on the financial institutions, so I want to stress on the resources. But it seems an area of interest, and it just requires, from our point of view, a continuous interaction we have, but this will not stop. It requires a continuous interaction to understand how the processes are evolving, understand how the specialists deal with the queries day to day. For example, what type of resources do they use, how they scan or how they identify their customers. And each financial institution may do it somehow differently, And that's why, from our point of view, it's important that we are developing, say, a product, but the product won't do everything. It's something that will be in collaboration and would be used by a human, by the specialist, and it would help and support them in their job so that they can function better. But this, again, comes with continuous discussions and also later on testing and interaction and use of the product. Thank you.
Dexter, anything to add?
Just to say that one of the things I really miss about the pre-COVID world is that it used to be very simple. If you wanted to find out, what people are really experiencing, you sit in at a community group meeting, and it all comes out there, and you then have a lot of ideas about how not just how does this happen, but also how do they experience it? What do they feel? How does that affect their life? And that's something that I really think about, and it's one of the reasons why I still maintain medical practice, because I think I've got one of those rare opportunities to, where people are just candid and they tell you like it is, and that's something that's really valuable. And just listening to those experiences, it's something that I really need to be reminded why we need to keep doing what we're doing, and also how things are shifting and changing. So having that connection is something that I think is really unique and special.
Dexter, Chrissy, I mean, thank you so much for everything that you're doing, all the work that you do with Kalgera, and your commitment to building a more financially inclusive world, which I think benefits all of us. An opportunity to add anything else that you feel the world should know about Kalgera? I think you've shared an incredible amount already, and I know our listeners with the EPA and the Project Inclusion team will benefit hugely from this, and we're looking forward to including you in our future reports. But last opportunity to add anything, or if you're happy?
One thing I would add is just back in 2018, TechNation made a collaboration toolkit for fintechs and incumbent financial institutions. I think more people should become better acquainted with that document, because it's actually been very helpful for us in the conversations that we've had with other institutions that we're developing relationships with, and doing our initial piloting. That's something that I think people should look at again, because it's a very valuable document, I would say. That's my tip.
Dexter, thank you very much. Chrissy?
Yes, it's very interesting. This whole area, I can consider it that it has many and lots of applications, and it could have applications that's in areas that we haven't really explored still or haven't considered. So I would say we're open to listening to more input, or whoever listens to our to this web podcast, and who reads the report. We would welcome always feedback and input.
Dexter, Chrissy, thank you so much for your time, for your work, and we look forward to continuing these conversations as part of our project, and I wish you well in the meanwhile.